不行啊，我。
プリズムパワーメイクアップカードレディー。
Welcome to Shojo Tell, where we discuss shoujo manga and tell who's hot and who's not, talk about themes, and just generally geek out. Today, February 21st, 2026, we'll be shoujo and telling about the series Full Moon O Sagashite by Arina Tanemura. I'm your host, Ashley McDonald, and I'm joined by Laura Spicer. Hello, Laura.
Hello. It's been 84 years.
It has been 84 years since Laura was on the podcast. It was 2019, and we were talking about Phantom Thief John. And
in the
truly,
before
that's
times.
the before times. The before.
We didn't know what was coming, but oh boy.
Like, both on a political and a personal level, like the before times.
Whoopee!
Oh,
I love the state of the world.
Yes, it's so good. Oh my god. Don't comment. No, it's I hate it.
Me too.
Anyway. Yes. Laura, for the people who were not around in 2019, which is so fair, who are you?
Hi, I am Laura. I am an illustrator and designer. I have always loved comics, graphic novels, storytelling, and this is always something I've wanted to do with my life, whether it be work in animation, work in publishing, and I just kind of fell into all this. So that's me.
Big Tanemura fan, because we're back for another Tanemura.
Yes. So for me, it has been a hot minute since I've last checked in with Tanemura, because Idle Dreams, I think, is her current manga, but she's freelancing now. Ever since around the time we last spoke, she became a freelancer, and she's mainly doing work for Idolish.
I was like, she's doing the Idolish 7, yeah.
Yeah. So one way or another, the idol industry has come a knocking for Arina Tanemura.
She came knocking to it first, let's be clear.
It's true. She's always been a fan of the idol industry, and Full Moon, coincidentally, was the first time she dipped her toes into that world in her personal work. And it shows.
Oh, and it shows, and we'll get there. Okay. So, this first section, we're going to talk about Full Moon. Try not to be too spoilery. This normally takes, I don't know, anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. And then I'll give a spoiler warning in case you have not read or perhaps watched Full Moon. It's one of those that got a really long anime, actually, which I'm sure we'll touch on. So I would also like to give a content warning for this one, because Full Moon does deal with rather heavy topics. If you haven't already read it and you want to hear this spoiler-free discussion, it does involve, like, suicide is a pretty prominent topic in it. Self-harm. There's, like, the assault is not really brought up, but there's a lot of assaulting that does happen in this. So if you haven't read Full Moon and you don't want to hear about those topics, you can abandon this episode just right now. I will not judge you. So to put that all in better context, Laura, what is Full Moon about?
12-year-old Koyama Mitsuki has always wanted to sing. It has been driving her throughout her entire life. She lives with her grandmother, Fuzuki Koyama, and the relationship is very strained. She finds out that she has developed throat cancer, and in her desperation to reconnect with the true love of her life, Eiichi Sakurai, she tries to become an idol in the idol entertainment industry, but she faces many setbacks. That is until one fateful day, Takuto and Mariko, Negi Ramen, come quite literally bursting through her walls and tells her she has 1 year left to live. And this thrusts Mitsuki into a world that she did not anticipate, and in turn has her confront personal feelings that she's locked away for many, many years.
Yes, and Takuto and Muroko, to be clear, are shinigami who have come to be like, yeah, we're gonna take your soul. Well, initially they have the mission of, they come on the day where somebody is supposed to prevent her death, and you're like, mysterious, who is it?
Who is this mysterious person?
Yeah,
well,
they're like, you're not supposed to be able to see us because you're not like actually a dying person yet. So there are many mysteries from the jump where you're like, but those are sidelined for Takuto can turn Mitsuki, who is 12, into a 16-year-old who is unaffected by her throat cancer and is a hot babe who can survive in the idol industry. So I'd like to discuss our level of familiarity with the series, because I think that we have both read this, maybe too many times, but it's been a hot minute. Yes. So
way too many times.
We were discussing this before the podcast. I honestly can't remember if my first take with this series was the anime rather than the manga. I really feel like that might have happened. Like, I don't even think I watched all of the anime, or I forget that I did. It was a very long anime. It's like 52 episodes or something. I have this memory that I didn't watch all of it, but regardless, I did watch some of it. I guess thought it was good enough to be like, I'm gonna go read the manga. This was like in high school / college. I actually recently tried to clean out my email, and some of the first things that were ever like archived in my personal Gmail are receipts from Barnes & Noble of buying Full Moon.
No way! That's amazing!
In like 2011, but I think I had read it before that. I was just like purchasing it again. So I feel like I read it several times in this like high school to like college, maybe slightly after college period. But that means I have not read it in like 10 to 15 years. I was also very annoyed because for this recording, I did get hard copies of it, but I borrowed them from the library because I couldn't find my own copies. And I was like, did past me decide this was important enough to buy? Like after I had already read it some other way. Then like in between making this podcast, like starting this podcast and purchasing them, I was like, never mind, I don't need that. Or is it just buried somewhere in my mom's house? I'm not sure, but I didn't have time to figure that out, so I just borrowed them from the library. Anyway.
Support your libraries.
Support your libraries.
Kids.
Yes.
PSA.
PSA. I had to use 2 library systems to get them all, but that's okay.
We love to see it. You're supporting your libraries.
Gotta support the libraries, yes. And I will say that rereading it this time, I was like, oh my God, this was so influential on how I thought about things like suicide, because I did have a like suicidal friend in high school. Is influential on how I thought of the concepts of like purity, culture, and everything. And I'm like, oh man, like I had this whole original story I wanted to write that I'm like, it had to be inspired by this. It was also inspired by listening to too much like Plus 44 and Evanescence and Linkin Park and junk, but like I was like, what if people who commit suicide, they get reincarnated every time and then they're destined to fall in love with somebody else who is suicidal, and their mission is that they have to try to prevent them from committing suicide, but it doesn't usually work, so then they just all keep getting reincarnated. And obviously now as like an older person, like even by the college time, I was like, you gotta deal with these topics sensitively in a way that I'm not sure that I actually could. And so I've never actually written that, but that is an idea that has stayed with me for a long time. Dang.
It just shows that younger you was trying to process that information, and at least it was a conversation starter, which I think is a good thing we can say about this manga for sure.
Oh yeah, it's got pluses and minuses, but yes, Laura, what's your history with Full Moon here?
So I was younger than you, when I first started reading it, I was actually around Mitsuki's age. It was 2003. So yes, I'm old. Hi, I am old. I can't remember if I was watching the anime first or if I found the manga first in the ancient internet age. But either way,
recording it, right? That's what I did.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
I was reading scanlations. I was torrenting the anime. And either way, 12-year-old me ate that slop up. It changed me in so many ways. And I was so hooked that I was like, please, whoever is out there, please license this so that I can own it on my bookshelf. And this said, okay, fam, I'll hook you up. And then when Shoujo Beat was announced and Full Moon was one of the first titles that they were going to release, I lost it. And then Viz said, wait, there's more. We're also going to license the anime. And of course, I lost it. And so I still have my original copies of the manga, like the first printings of the Viz releases. They've seen some wear and tear that was beyond my control. I originally did have the DVDs, but because Viz infamously dropped the anime, it never got fully released. They stopped like halfway through, and that crushed me. So I gave all my DVDs away to my friend.
Well, the question is, did you buy the new Blu-rays?
I will when I come into some money. Let me tell you, I was not expecting that news. If you said, Laura, they are going to rescue this series, and not only are they going to rescue it, they're going to find the entire dub, the back half of the dub that they never released, I would have told you were lying to me.
Anything is possible in the year our Lord 2026.
It is. It's amazing that there are folks in the anime industry who are working tirelessly to rescue anime like Full Moon. And I'm very grateful that they do work like that. And by the way, anybody in the anime industry, if you want to pick up Phantom Thief John, that never got a stateside release, and you want to dub that, I think you should.
Now's the time.
Now's the time. But I've read this so many times. I've watched it so many times. And it teetered off in my late teens, early 20s, because as I got older and I learned more about the world and I was processing more information, my opinion started to change. And I was like, oh.
I think that leads us into what's our favorite aspect of the series? Because for me, I definitely feel like, as you get older, you're like, Tanemura, maybe this isn't appropriate for
hey
girl. This is, I mean, to be fair, when Tanemura was writing this, she was 22 to 26 or something, something over
like
the
that.
span. She was also fairly young. So
yeah, she was in our age demographic pretty much.
Yeah. So I'm I understand. And also as an adult, I'm like, oh, that needed more sensitivity and run room to explore these topics and perhaps less characters. But, Tanemura still got me. I still cried rereading it this time in volume 4, which will I don't want to tell you what that was because it's spoiler free section, but yep. I'm just so you got me. And also I feel like Tanemura, what's more synonymous with shoujo manga eyes than Mitsuki's eyes, we don't get more shoujo than this.
And her eye colors change with every color illustration. And let me tell you, back then, when Full Moon was being serialized, this was actually a community debate. People would break out into fights over Mitsuki's true eye color. I'm so
I
serious.
know. Oh my gosh.
Even with the anime, because people were so upset with everybody's eye and hair color because it wasn't manga accurate.
Takudo does look interesting, you know. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Choices were made. Choices were made. I mean, you look at Takudo's design and you're like, well, choices were made all around. So, you know, we might as well keep this train going.
Right?
But yeah, all that is to say it's really emotionally affecting and like pretty still. So much lace, you know, like
I'd say agreeing with you there. This is where Arina's modern sensibilities with her art begin to evolve and take place. Reading this in real time back then, and then after that, I was literally monthly checking in with the Gentleman's Alliance and then Sakura Hime after that. Full Moon was that starting point where she developed her modern style, looking back. And I was like, yeah, I can see where she developed all of her modern techniques, the way she utilizes her screen tones, the way her paneling, the ornate costuming, the way she draws. It all started with Full Moon. And as you were saying, with the themes that she tackled, it was very multi-layered and complex. And I'd say it's probably, to this day, her most complex series to date, bar none. I know I'll get debates on that, most likely, because Arina has always tackled very complex theming, but to me, Full Moon is her most complex. And I actually like that there's a huge cast, but to me, rereading it as an adult, I think one of the biggest faults with this manga is its length. It should never have been 30 chapters. It should have been longer.
I was like, it's too short, right? Okay.
It's way too short.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid, I was so ticked off that the Gentleman's Alliance got way more chapters than Full Moon did. I was like, how could they do this? Full Moon needed more chapters, because even though I didn't quite understand it back then, I knew that Full Moon needed more time to cook. And Gentleman's Alliance needed less time, ironically. But that's a story for another day. Full Moon, if it had a longer length, more chapters, more time to deal with its themes, its lore, its world building, the characters, I think this would have been Arina's best work, bar none. Nobody would have ever been able to forget it, and people would still be talking about it. But I will say, obviously, people know who Arina Tanemura is. They know her manga. There's no question about that. But what I'm saying is, when we think of shoujo manga, what do people think of? They think of Fruits Basket. They think of Sailor Moon. They think of Cardcaptor Sakura, like Titans, like that.
Yeah.
Oron, yeah. I think if Full Moon were longer, it could have been one of those Titans. Genuinely.
Yeah, I think Full Moon occupies a very, I would say, complicated space in shoujo, because it did get that really long anime. Like, it might have been one of the last ones to get that, right? Like, we don't get that anymore. That's what we're all screaming about today. Is like, we never get these like 50 episode plus adaptations of anything anymore. And Full Moon was a shorty, you know, like it benefits from being an anime because it's about music. Like, you want to hear the music, of course, that's great. And they do change things as far as I remember. So like, it had a little bit more of that run room. But yeah, and so like, I feel like on the one hand, Full Moon is like this cultish classic, like where if you know, you're like, no, Full Moon was very important. But yeah, it's not like, you're not going around recommending everybody has to watch Full Moon in the same way you're like, you gotta watch Fruits Basket or like Yona or, you know, like any number of titans that have come before and since, you know?
Yeah. And you're bringing up the anime. The interesting part about that is the anime started when the 4th chapter of the manga came out. And Arina talks about that in her sidebar conversations, which provide a lot of supplemental material, by the way, for viewers who are listening and watching. Definitely read Arina's sidebars because she provides a lot of context. And it's important because Full Moon started when Time Stranger Kyoko got canceled. Tragedy in itself. But Full Moon proved to be so popular right out the gate that Shueisha was like, we got to make this an anime. And they did. And it shows that they made that anime too soon.
Yeah. Yeah. When she was talking about it in like volume 1 or 2, I was like, ah.
And the anime ended around chapter 12, 13-ish of the manga. So yeah, you can tell. And like you were saying, the best parts of the anime were it took a better look into the idol industry than the manga did. You got the technical breakdowns of how recording a song happens, how they build up towards the marketing and the release of a single and doing radio shows and actually hearing the music. But at the same time, one of the anime's biggest flaws is there isn't enough songs because it's an anime made for kids.
God, yeah, that's
and they're
what
trying
I was
to
like, they reuse the songs way too much though.
You enter an eternal snow hell after episode 26 and you're like, I don't want to hear eternal snow anymore. Please don't make me listen to eternal snow anymore. Yeah. You have nightmares and all you can hear is eternal snow. It haunts your dreams.
Oh no.
And you can tell the characters are off in the anime. Everything's just off. And of course, because it's a shoujo anime, you can tell by how it's produced. It's not the best looking anime.
No.
It's a Studio Dean production, so it's very messy.
I don't know. Now that I've had to watch the new Hanakimi a bit and like A Condition Called Love, I'm like, all right.
I've been watching Hanakimi also, and I'm like, oh boy.
I have so many questions about the Hanakimi adaptation, but anyway, that's a separate podcast.
Yes.
Oh my god, yes. So overall, do you recommend people read Full Moon despite its sloppiness?
Yes, I still stand by the fact that it's Arina's best work. In my mind. It's still my favorite, despite its flaws. It's many flaws. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, part of me is like, you can't, if you like shoujo manga, you can't not read Arina Tanemura. And most Arina Tanemura works are sloppy in some way. And Full Moon is perhaps the most like emotionally affecting. So you might as well read Full Moon if you're going to pick one, you know?
I agree with you 100%.
Okay, so if you do want to read Full Moon and you have not yet done that, again, check out your libraries. I feel like the libraries are all hanging on to all these greatest hits from like the mid 2000s still, to be honest. But Full Moon is published in English by Viz Media still. You can still get it digitally and on Viz's, subscription reading app. You might find physical copies still available at certain retailers. Like I looked at Barnes & Noble and they had some of the volumes in stock physically and some of them not. So I'm not sure about physical releases at this point, but you can certainly get it fairly easily and legally digitally. So go have fun with that. now we're going to spoil all the things. There are so many things to spoil.
Oh my goodness.
So many things happen. We didn't even we did a good job of not saying what they are. Okay, let's go.
Aw, snap. Here we go again.
I'm gonna say it all now. Okay.
Strap in, kids.
Strap in, kids. There's so much. Okay. So I feel like we can do a character walkthrough, and I hope that as we discuss the characters, many of the recurring themes and motifs kind of just come up naturally. I think that will happen. So we'll get straight in with our girl Mitsuki and her boy Eiichi. So Mitsuki is seen in this manga again as this shining ray of pureness, basically, right? Like everybody's like, she's so bubbly, she's so upbeat, even though her circumstances are sad. Some people don't really know that from the jump, but even though her circumstances are sad, she's just like keeping this upbeat attitude, right? Even though she knows she's gonna die, and she's trying so hard to reunite with her long lost childhood love, who she fell in love with when she was like 10. Yeah, we're card capturing this, I guess, but Eiichi's slightly older, which again, when it's like, if they were adults and it was like he's 26 and she's 22, like that's a fine age gap. When it's like he's 14 and she's 10, you're like, it's getting a little weird, like,
yeah, and there's a lot of that here, guys.
So much.
I'm sorry to say.
So then it turns out that Eiichi, she knows that Eiichi is already dead, because we're just going for the feelings here. And she's known that all along. This is what made me cry in volume 4, I will not lie, is like the reveal that Eiichi has already been dead this whole time. And, she's been trying, and she's like, how do I preserve his memory so that I don't lose him forever, because I truly love him. And I'm like, girl!
It's so emotionally poignant. And let me just say, as a kid, I was all about the shipping wars back then. So
Yes.
12-year-old me was like, Mitsuki's so annoying when she's talking about Eiichi all the time. It's so annoying.
Oh,
but now I'm like,
shipper?
I was a Mitsuki Takto shipper, yep. But let me just say, as an adult, I completely understand where Mitsuki's coming from now, because she sanitizes Eiichi on purpose so that she can keep this false perception of him alive, because she's desperately clinging on to the fact that if she doesn't keep this version of Eiichi alive in her mind, she'll have to confront the fact that Eiichi is actually dead in reality, and she doesn't want to deal with that. And that's a very real thing, that when people are grieving, that's what they do. People do this. And it's not just Eiichi, her parents too. Mitsuki's an orphan. So we find out, before Eiichi just completely overconsumes every aspect of her life, that her parents meant a great deal to her too. She never knew who they were, because obviously they died when she was born, but she was punished by the adults around her for what happened to her parents, because her father was the famous guitarist of Root L, so he was a celebrity. And then her mother was, of course, her grandmother's daughter, and the whole music connection there made her grandmother a very bitter person on so many multiple.
I was like, this
levels.
is child abuse, ma'am. This is child abuse.
Oh my God! Like, John. By the way, trigger warning: some of the abuse is child abuse.
I know. I was like, I didn't even include that in the beginning, but I should have.
Not just for Mitsuki, but for Izumi.
Oh yeah.
Takto goes through it. Naruko goes through it. all of them as minors get abused in some level. And Mitsuki is punished for what happened to her parents. And then because she's internalized being punished for what happened to her parents, I think she internalizes all that and then punishes herself for what happens to Eiichi. And that in itself is horrific and tragic.
I was a bit confused by that part because I remember her being like, it's my fault that he's dead. And I was like, what? What are you talking about, girl? Died in a plane crash. You didn't do that.
Yeah, it takes a long time to realize that it's because she's internalized all of this abuse from the adults around her. And then when something traumatic like this happened, and of course, leading up to that moment, I will leave that for later because it ticks me off. But Mitsuki internalized everything and she just punishes herself for something that's far beyond a 10-year-old's control. And then she endures way more after that. So it's awful. And I think it's something that anybody can relate to. I think Mitsuki is probably Arina's best written protagonist as a result of that.
Yeah, I'm like, I wish as a younger person that I started being like, oh, Mitsuki is a lot like kind of like Toru from Fruits Basket, where it's like you think she's really like this pure shining light all the time, but it's like the series of horrible things have happened to her. And she's like, no, I don't think that I'm pure. I'm like torturing myself inside, right? Like beating myself up over and over and over and trying to be this like perfect person, and it's not working, right? Like,
yep.
And I was like, oh, that is smarter than I gave it credit for again as a younger person reading that.
Funny how Fruits Basket and Full Moon were running at the exact same time, too. Weird. And funny how I also relate to Toru.
Oh, yes. I mean, sweet, sweet Toru. Yeah, so Mitsuki, I'm just like, it's so hard to chronicle the traumas. Yeah, I'm like, okay, so her parents died when she was super young. So both her and Eiichi were orphans. And Eiichi, as he's being like adopted, they're like, we're going to go to America. And the plane takes off and immediately crashes and everybody on board dies. And you're like, oh. And then Mitsuki, of course, is dealing with her own diagnosis of terminal like throat cancer. Like, it doesn't have to be terminal. So I don't think we make clear that it's like she could get an operation where she could treat the cancer, but they keep telling her that if she does that, then she won't have her vocal cords anymore. So then she wouldn't be able to talk or sing. And she's like, no, I can't not sing. Like, that's ridiculous. I'd rather die, right? Like, I'd rather die than not be able to sing. And I mean, the manga doesn't really get into this, but it's like, that's really complicated to allow a 12-year-old to like make those decisions, Yep. Like that in itself can be seen as like, we have increasingly complicated feelings about assisted suicide or like assisted death these days, and I'm just like, okay, like she's like, it's not
Yeah. And this is another part where I relate to Mitsuki. My whole life I had always been sickly myself, and I was like, oh, I relate to Mitsuki so much because my health has always been bad. Well, it turns out I'm chronically ill too. To clarify, I don't have cancer, but I have genetic chronic illnesses that has been there since I was born. And the interesting thing is, Mitsuki also has chronic illnesses besides the cancer. It's not just the cancer, because she had always been sickly, even as a child. And it's also genetic on her maternal line because her mother was sickly and her grandmother was sickly too. So there's this underlying component that there's a genetic chronic illness that runs in the family on Mitsuki's maternal line.
Unnamed chronic illness, as per usual.
Yep. And then Mitsuki gets diagnosed with throat cancer. They call it a sarcoma in the manga, but I'm calling it laryngeal cancer because it's primarily affecting her vocal cords. If you're going into technicalities and you had to quote unquote stage it, for reference, I am not a doctor and I'm not giving medical advice, but it's probably like stage 2 or 3 if Dr. Wakoji, who is her oncologist, is saying, okay, if we remove your vocal cords, it will allow your cancer to go into remission. Yeah. They never go into specifics on the medical side of things in this manga. So for anybody with chronic illnesses reading this manga, or for anybody with cancer reading this manga, and you get frustrated with the medical side of things, I'm so sorry. Arina, this is not Arina's. She's not a doctor. And this is something that commonly happens in manga. They don't clarify
I was
things like that.
Come on, Arina also like magically waves all issues away too. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And in the end, she survives because they're like, Takato made her 16 so much that her cancer didn't progress. So then she beat it without having to lose her vocal cords, and now it's all A-okay, and you're like, what? Huh?
You're like, girl, huh?
What?
And like, she was so sick to the point where she wasn't going to school. There's also the side of things of her grandmother was abusing her and isolating her and not allowing her to go to the outside world. And her grandmother wouldn't even allow her to seek medical care. She was having Wakoji come to the house to give very basic conservative measures that don't do anything to stop the progression of her cancer. So it's kind of like, well, it's no wonder her cancer is progressing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Can we talk about the grandma? Because I'm just like, were we supposed to like her in the end? Because I'm like, I don't think I can forgive you.
The way I've come to understand this now is we get the context behind her actions, but it doesn't excuse what she's done. And that's a running theme for the people who have committed abuse in this manga, because there's a lot of forgiveness of abusers in this manga, and I don't like it.
So much. Because I was like, now we're like, at the end, we're like hanging out with grandma, and she's like, oh, isn't this so cool? Music's cool again. I'm like, girl, I'm gonna need like years of apologies from you, ma'am.
We need to go to family therapy together. We need to set some boundaries. We need to set some goals about communication, and we need to put in some work. And the funny thing is, in chapter 3 and 4, Mitsuki was thrown into a shed by her grandmother.
Yes.
And locked in because her grandmother found out she was sneaking out. And of course, Fuzuki, trying to maintain control over Mitsuki, did not like that. And so instead of leaving because, her grandmother has been abusing her this whole time, and this is still a valid concern, Mitsuki is more worried that her grandmother will force her to have surgery, thus prolonging her life.
Yeah, ooh, scary.
And here's another thing that bothers me. And I know we live in the United States, and of course, Japan's medical system is different from the United States, but I think I can confidently say for a fact that Mitsuki would not be able to consent to any medical decisions related to her care because she's a minor.
Right.
That it would be in the hands of her adult guardian, which would be Fuzuki. So the fact that Mitsuki is being treated like all the medical consent is in her hands is a little strange.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Tanemura loves to do this, like, children have more power than they should, and also I just age them up magically kind of thing. It feels like a lot.
It does happen a lot because it kind of sort of happens in reverse in Idol Dreams. But yes, her kids look more and act more like adults in her manga. And it's very strange.
And I'm always just like, Tanemura, what are you trying to tell me? Like, I don't know that I have a clear reading on this yet, Tanemura. You know,
I do think Arina needed to do a little bit more research into the medical side of things if she was going to have chronically ill protagonists. Because it's not just Mitsuki who had cancer. Takuto had cancer in his human life too, and we'll get to him.
Yes, I was like, well, hold up. Now we should talk about Waka Oji then, because hold up, this man. Okay, so Route L is the band that Mitsuki's dad, his name is Aoi, and Takuto was like the youngest in this band, and then Waka Oji was also in this band. Okay, so we are to believe that Waka Oji, who looks like he is no more than 25 years old, I suppose he is older because he has lived 1,000 lifetimes, if this is his career path, where like he was an idol man. He was an idol man in an idol band, okay? Then he became a doctor, he's an oncologist treating Mitsuki. And then he has suspicions about who this full moon singer is, you know? And he goes back to being a record producer because he's like, maybe I know that Mitsuki really wanted to find Eiichi by being a pop star, right? So I'm gonna go join the records again to like go find Mitsuki. And you're like, hold up. Are you a serious doctor man or not? Because I don't think you could be doing like record producing on the side and being a pretty idol boy and like look like you're 25. And also the point that the other thing was that Waka Oji is the one who did Takuto's surgery too. And Takuto like chose to do the surgery that was basically equivalent to what Mitsuki had to do. So they like forced Takuto to do the surgery, and they're like, "You can no longer sing. You've lost your vocal cords." And Takuto takes his own life because he's like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I don't understand." So he jumps off like the hospital building, presumably. And I'm just like, Waka Oji, man, like everybody's dealing with too much. It's too much.
Yeah, you never get any clarification for how old certain characters actually are. We don't know how old Aoi is. We don't know how old Keiichi is.
No.
The timeline for Takuto 2 is actually a little weird also. And if we have to look at this logically, I think I've sort of figured it out timeline-wise.
Did you like map it out?
I did, and it took years of thinking about this. So I think Route L was maybe only a thing for about 2-ish years.
Mm-hmm.
Because Aoi dies when he's driving Hazuki, his wife, to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And thus the band completely falls apart and disbands after that. And Keiichi is like, he was actually already debating while he was still in the band, do I want to go to medical school or do I want to keep being a keyboard player for this band?
Yeah.
And he gets some advice from Oshige, of all people. She was in the idol industry as well. He does not know this at first. And so with that advice, and then with the sudden, completely out of nowhere incident of Aoi dying, he goes to medical school. And it varies, but usually it's like in the US, you take your MCAT and then you do 4 years of interning, and then you do like 4 to 6 years of residency, or even 4 to 8 years, depending on which specialty you want to go to. And Wakoji, of course, chose to do oncology and become a surgeon. So he has the ability to be a surgeon, and that takes time. So like when all it's said and done, it takes like close to 10 to 14 years.
Yeah.
So unless he was some kind of rock star resident, you're not performing surgeries.
He's not doing Takedo surgery. Like,
No.
this makes no sense.
No. And if he is, that was probably one of his first surgeries ever.
Takedo should be mad at him.
And the other thing is, Takedo says that Wakoji forced him into surgery.
Right.
And, you know, that can be up to interpretation, because Wakoji is obviously his friend, and he's trying to get his friend to prolong his life. Takedo still has to consent to surgery. You can't force someone to have surgery. It doesn't matter if you're in the United States or if you're in Japan.
What do you mean? You can't just knock him out and then just put him
Nope.
in there?
Nope. So I think emotionally, Takedo was just like, he pressured me so much, and I just gave into that pressure, and that's why it's his fault. I think that's what Arina was trying to say. She just didn't word it very well.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the reason that, like, Mitsuki seems to have, like, outsized power for her age, right? It's because, like, we're like, oh, well, Wakoji feels bad about how much pressure he applied to Takedo. So he's like, I can't do that to Mitsuki. And it's just like, I don't know. My understanding, because, you know, I had 2 brain surgeries, and I was like, but what if I just don't want to? And they were like, listen, you can tell us that you don't want to do this, and we can't, like, make you, but we will hound you. Like, we will still hound you to do it, right? Like, they were like, we can't literally force you, but, like, nobody will leave you alone, basically.
Yeah, and I can say, I've had so many surgeries at this point. It's ridiculous, but anytime I've been faced with a surgery, my surgeons have never pressured me into surgery. They always tell me it's a last resort. You don't have to do this unless you want to, and we'll try other things first. And if those things don't work, this is the option that you have. And I'm like, okay, cool with me, guys.
Yeah, it's always complicated when they're like, if you don't do it, like, you might die, right? Like, those are the options. And so I feel like this whole manga is about, like, you know, when do you get to choose to, like, I don't know, it's just a lot about death, and, like, we have untimely deaths, right? We have, like, these, like, people who did not choose it at all. It just happens to them, and that's so unfortunate. And then, like, the people who are cursed because they chose it, and I'm just like, did we explore either of these in a, like, logical way?
And that's where I think the length plays a huge part in Full Moon's downfall. I think if you ask me how long should this manga be, maybe 15 volumes.
Double it, you say.
Yeah, maybe 15. You could even do 20. And that it would probably have been a more satisfactory manga, because there are so many characters. There's so many themes that Arina's trying to cover. And I think she did research to some degree, but it wasn't quite enough to allow the story to stand on its own 2 feet, especially when it comes to things like the medical side of things and how that impacts characters like Mitsuki and Takedo. I think with the themes of suicide and the themes of death, like what is a good death and who should be punished for the choices they make in their life that leads up to committing suicide or the untimely death of someone else. Things like that, and especially with the backdrop of the idol industry thrown into that, there's so much complexity there that it didn't have enough room to breathe, because the idol industry is clearly important to Mitsuki, to Takuto, to Madoka, to Nachi, to Wakoji, to so many characters, and it was barely touched upon. And it was very frustrating to me.
Yeah, and it's, you know, maybe it's like, it's interesting reading Full Moon in a world where we have manga like Not Your Idol, which is a more recent shoujo manga that just came off of a hiatus. That's about how, you know, the idol industry won't protect you and it can be really bad. Or like, you know, we have Oshinoko, you know, like it's like we all have greater insight into both. We have more idol shows, you know, we just said Arina Tanemura is working on Idolish 7. That's not a takedown of the idol industry. That is a loving send up to it, you know, like, but we also do live in this world where we're like, hey, wait, hold on. Let's like peel back the layers. And I don't think Tanemura actually bridges the gap much at all about like the deaths being related to the idol. There's like, they're like separate entities within the manga.
And the interesting thing is the anime does actually try to tackle some of that a little bit. So there was a photo stalking incident in like episode, I can't remember what episode it is. It's an episode or two, like around between 10 to 14, something like that. There's also an incident where Full Moon is at a resort because she's doing a beach concert and she's being preyed upon by older boys, and Takuto has to like step in and protect her, and stuff like that happens not once but like a couple times with the anime, but it's not like explicit, it's just like very PG.
Yeah, I was like, the thing that we get in this was there was the stalker that turned out to be one of the shinigami as part of a different plan, right? So it's like, okay, I guess you tied them together. There were some stakes, but I just feel like the explicitness of like death and the idol industry is not there.
It didn't have enough time to cook, and especially when they were trying to connect it with the guilt that Mitsuki feels, especially connected to her parents' death. So Arina didn't cook enough with that in volume 5.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, really, because family is so important in this manga. There's blood family versus found family in this manga. Mitsuki has her blood ties to Fuzuki, to Aoi, to Hazuki, to Seijiro. And then she has her found family, which includes Takuto, Mariko, Izumi. We can throw Jonathan in there. It's fine. And I will argue that Madoka's part of that family as like one of her cool older sisters. Oshige is a mother figure. Wakoji is like a father figure to Mitsuki. So like family is so important in this manga, but you don't have enough time to cook with it. And if you do cook with it a little bit, and there's familial abuse in this manga, we have to forgive the abusers for some reason.
Yeah, now I'm like, hold up. I still don't forgive the grandma, because I'm like, this thing with Seijiro in the past. So Mariko, who is Takuto's shinigami partner, part of the Negi Ramen, who comes to reap Mitsuki's soul or whatever. So Maroko's whole thing, or like the biggest driving plot, is that it's like she's like, I love Takuto, I love Izumi, And you're like, what's going on, girl? You know, she seems like just like a silly rabbit. But then it turns out, because everything has to be interconnected, because this is a story and that's how it works. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in the past, I actually think Moroko's like death by suicide is the most imagery troubling, you know, like troubling on multiple levels. So in the past, Muroko was friends with Mitsuki's grandma, and a boy came between them, Seijiro. And basically, like, it's all so complicated. Like, Mitsuki's grandma had a fiance, and then they mutually meet this boy together, and Muroko's like, her name is Moe as a human, but I'm just gonna keep calling her Muroko. So Muroko meets, you know, and Fuzuki, they meet this boy, like at the same time. And Muroko's like, oh, I really like him, but they hang out all the time as a trio. Again, very high school. Like, I'm like, I get it, totally. So then through like slight miscommunications, you know, like the girls are actually like, oh, we really miss hanging out with each other. Like, we really appreciated each other's friendship, and we don't want this boy to come in between them. But so, like, Seijiro gets it in his head that he's like, I'll solve the problem. I'll solve part of the problem by becoming Fuzuki's fiance. So then basically, now Seijiro is supposed to marry Fuzuki, and then Fuzuki's original fiance is like, I'm gonna go marry Muroko. And then you know, this breaks Muroko up inside, and she like sees Fuzuki and Seijiro kissing. And so that makes her very upset. And she's like, you guys have been just like seeing each other behind my back and all this stuff. Then she gets assaulted by her, you know, leftover fiance, like her switched fiance.
I in my notes I called him Nepo baby rapist scumbag.
Very good. Nepo baby rapist scumbag. I agree. And then like the combination of these factors causes her to die by suicide by cutting her wrist. And then, you know, in the future when Muroko and Fuzuki are like becoming friends again, which also makes no sense. Like, why are you trusting this magical rabbit in your backyard anyway? So they're becoming friends again, and Fuzuki's like, oh, you just caught us in a moment of weakness. We actually didn't see each other, and I didn't marry him in the end, and like all this stuff. And I'm like, no, girl, what? No. Like, this one moment of weakness, give me a break.
That whole Maruko's arc is very complicated. Like, a lot of what caused Maruko to break, there's a lot of political machinations going on between her family and Fuzuki's family. So Fuzuki's comes from a very wealthy family, and Maruko's family, I think, isn't as wealthy, but they're
still pretty good. They're pretty well.
They're upper class.
Yeah.
So Maruko's parents originally said, okay, Moe, you are going to become friends with Fuzuki because she's sickly and she doesn't have anybody, and so you're going to be friends with her. And originally it was just politically set up, but then a genuine bond formed between these two girls. And let me just say, their friendship is very queer-coded. Reading it now, I'm like, this is very queer-coded.
I'm like, they really just want to be lesbians, like, for each other.
They do. They are it's very queer-coded. Like, a lot of these characters could be read as bi or pan.
Yes.
At this point. And, like, Maruko and Fuzuki are so deeply devoted to each other, they're like, we don't want anybody else coming in between us. Like, you see later on in Maruko's backstory that some random girls had come over to play cards. I'm sure Fuzuki's parents arranged that. Nepo baby rapist scumbag has popped in and out, and he said to Fuzuki, oh, you're not allowed to be friends with Moe anymore. I don't want you hanging around her. You need to stop being childish, and you need to start preparing to become my wife. And it's funny because this guy has a notorious reputation for being a scumbag, but because his family is so affluential, and you do find out that Maruko's family, their company, is owned by Nepo baby rapist scumbags' parents. So that's why everything is so tied together. So if you're wondering, like, oh, why can't Maruko get out of this? She's literally a political pawn, as is Fuzuki. And then Seijiro, thinking he's trying to make this better by being like, oh, I'll just solve this by making Fuzuki my fiance. He just makes everything so much worse because the Kogas are also an affluential family. And women back then, this was like, you assume this was like the 50s based on their outfits and
I think it might have said it somewhere too. It was like, it's like between 1950 and 1956 or something.
Yeah, I did remember, right? Haha. There's a lot of arranged marriages, especially in affluential families, still happened. So Maruko and Fuzuki were just pawns in their family's game. And there is that led to the big fallout. Maruko's a very passionate, emotionally driven person. She will act first and think later. So if she sees a cute guy, she will hone in on that cute guy and then lose sight of everything else. And that also causes her downfall because when she tries to confide in her best friend also develops feelings for the same guy. And while I'll say this, Fuzuki does try to tell Seijiro, hey, we cannot be together. I'm engaged. That's when Seijiro is like, okay, well then I'm going to make you engaged to me instead, because he's showering Fuzuki with gifts and he's trying to be overly nice to her because he heard her crying about what Nepo baby rapist scumbag said to her. And then everything falls apart when Fuzuki emotionally cheats with Seijiro. Now, to be clear, Maruko never got together with Seijiro, but because she confided in Fuzuki, she still felt betrayed. Right. And then it got worse when she was almost raped by Nepo baby rapist scumbag. And all those compounding factors and desperately just wanting things to go back to the way they were, wanting Fuzuki back by her side. She just was just broken beyond repair at that point. And she felt backed into a corner. And you're like, okay, this contextualizes Fuzuki. It contextualizes Maruko. And then later on down the line, because of what happened with Moe, Fuzuki, I think, hardens herself and becomes strict with Hazuki, her daughter. And because then Hazuki falls in love with Aoi, who is coincidentally Seijiro's son.
Coincidentally.
That just made things even worse. And of course, Aoi is a famous musician. And because Hazuki ran away from home and eloped, because I'm sure Fuzuki was being very restrictive with Hazuki, and then Hazuki lost her life, that just completely wrecked Fuzuki even further. And again, that the context is provided, but it doesn't excuse anybody's actions.
I'm still not excusing it. No,
no. And you always get the sense that when Maruko, so the reason why Maruko reunites with Fuzuki is she's using all her powers to protect Mitsuki from other shinigami finding her. She sets up a barrier to prevent other shinigami from detecting her. And you quite don't understand why, because it's not like it's close to Mitsuki's death day or anything.
No.
It's only been like 4 months in the story. So there's sort of no reason why she needs to do this. I feel like if the timeline was pushed up a little bit, it would make more sense. But regardless, Miroko's trying to protect Mitsuki. That takes a toll on her physical state, and she turns into a rabbit form, and that's how she falls into Fuzuki's backyard. And then she reconnects with Fuzuki before she realizes, that's her best friend.
Yeah, this is what makes her like remember all the things, because as a Shinigami, you're not supposed to remember how you died. But all of our specials here, they're so special.
Yes. And Fuzuki is completely different than how we see her when we're first introduced to her. So it's sort of a whiplash moment because it had been so long.
Right.
And you're like, wait.
I really feel like there was a great push to redeem the grandma, and I'm like, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
There should have been more moments with Fuzuki where she seemed remorseful and you got more context, because Mitsuki eventually said she heard from Tanaka about Moe, and you're like, wait, when did this happen?
Yeah.
When did all this happen? And I wish moments like this were provided, because I think it would have helped a lot with the story, in my opinion. And of course, because of how Mariko died, it also informed her love life a little bit. And how
her sloppy love life, yes.
Oh, Mariko is a very, very messy girl. But you could say that about all the characters in this story, really. Everybody's a hot mess.
So fancy.
So, and the interesting thing is, when it comes to Mariko and love, I think genuinely the only time she's actually truly been in love with somebody is Izumi.
Yes, I would agree.
Because with Takuto, it was very clear she was putting on an act. And I think on some level, maybe Mariko developed some kind of small admiration for Takuto, but it was never actually truly romantically driven at all. You always got the sense something was off. Like how with Mitsuki, something was off with her talking about Eiichi all the time. And I think that's where Mariko and Mitsuki could have actually related. But of course, you never get a lot of moments where Mitsuki and Mariko actually bond, which is tragic.
No, yeah, I feel like Arina thinks she did it, and I'm like, no, you didn't, though.
Like, not girl.
Nah.
There isn't a lot of female bonding, and Arina notes in like chapter 19 in some of her comment sections, she says Mariko and Mitsuki never truly become friends, and I do agree with that. However, I take it a step further, and I would say, while they never became friends, they clearly became sisters. Mariko is Mitsuki's older sister.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mariko is part of the Friends of the Forest, which is like Mitsuki's found family dynamic with this Shinigami. And Mariko is clearly her older sister. She truly cherishes Mariko, and I will not let Arina tell me that they didn't have some kind of
That's
bond.
why they fight like that.
Exactly. And Izumi himself apparently views Mitsuki as his older sister.
Right. Well, because again, you kind of, initially it's like set up like, does Izumi also have a crush on Mitsuki? But then I feel like we pull a Yuki in Fruits Basket to Toru moment where it's like, nah, he's, she's just his sister.
I feel like with Izumi, it was never that bad because he clearly had single target sexuality for Mariko.
What do you mean? He kissed Takuto that one time.
Yeah, he's our bi king. What am I talking about? I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, get it? Come on. That moment is so weird. Like, Tanemura acknowledges it in a note. She's like, I don't know, I made it happen just because I needed something to happen to make him shut up, and then nobody acknowledges it in the story.
Izumi is also our bi king.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that Arina never, like, calls it gross or, like, comments on how disgusting it is, it's just, Izumi's our bi king. What can I say?
Yeah. I mean, look at him. Look at him. What a Viking.
But I guess we could talk about Izumi a little bit if you want, since we're on the subject.
Yes, so Izumi, I actually really like Izumi. He might be my favorite of the trio.
Ooh,
You know, I'm
interesting.
excluding Jonathan.
Sorry, Jonathan.
Sorry, Jonathan. I'm so confused by you. Okay. So like Izumi is just, I feel like he plays a more interesting role than the other two, and he gets like clear character moment. Like, again, Arina tries to be like, this is the Morocco arc, this is the Takudo arc. But I think they're like in her side panels, she was like, people actually said like these chapters about Izumi and his past and like bonding, you know, with Mitsuki, they feel almost like side chapters. And I'm like, yeah, but that means they're really like focused, you know, like they're focused and have a clear point in a way that maybe telling a very long overarching story sometimes doesn't. So yeah, so like I appreciate Izumi for that, and I feel like he's playing an interesting role where it's like, you know, initially he's there and you're like, oh, he's comedically evil. Oh, he's played for laughs because he's just trying to push Takuto's buttons, you know, all the time or whatever. And then I feel like neither of those things turns out to be true in the end, you know, like, and his story again, in a comparison to Fruits Basket, feels perhaps the most Fruits Basket-esque, where you're like, what happens with him is that his dad dies and his mom then basically becomes a different person and starts to like reject him, right? Like she's like, you look too much like your dad, and she's just really like mean about it. So she's abusing him. Then they go out one day and he's like, I'm gonna, you know, see if she cares at all, basically. And he goes into the middle of a train track as the train is coming, like the gates have gone down, and he's watching his mom as he dies, and he's like, he sees her smile, like that's the last thing that he remembers. So he's like, oh my gosh, what a sicko, right? And then it turns out that she has like these weird complicated human feelings, and she was crying, but she was like, well, he does need to get away from me because I've been horrible, right? And as discussed before, somehow he reaps the soul of his own mom, even though he's a member of the pediatric ward. Like, we are shown that he's going through the list of people that are slated for death, and like presumably it's only the pediatric ward, but he somehow gets his mom's, and I'm like, you know what, don't question it. That's not what this manga is for, right?
Yeah.
So he just like, he thought he would get, so he didn't yet know that like his mom had all these complicated feelings and actually cried over him, or like realized that she was the problem and like couldn't think of a solution other than to let him die, right? Like, so he doesn't actually know that at this point where he reaps her, and he's just like, I thought, you know, I would find the catharsis from like reaping her or whatever, and he doesn't. And I don't know, those story beats just feel more like realistic to a degree. You know, it felt like it had a clear progression, and I was like, okay, I understand this man.
Yeah, I agree. And to add on to that, for everybody listening, when Izumi died, he was only 6 years old. So this was a 6-year-old child being horrifically beaten by his mother, and he made this choice to take his own life. So, and the weird thing about that is when he becomes a shinigami, he magically turns into a 16-year-old, because I guess on the inside his soul was so mature. The aging thing with the shinigami is very weird, because they're eternally 16-year-old teenagers, I guess. It doesn't matter what
everybody's
age you
eternally
are.
16 in Arina Tanemura manga. Okay.
It doesn't matter what age you were when you take your own life. You are 16 when you become a shinigami, except for maybe their bosses, who are clearly adults and not
who are
teenagers.
25. Yes.
Yeah. the shinigami bosses.
Yeah.
and we could, and that's a whole discussion in and of itself. Is I'm so upset that we never get a deep dive into the Shinigami realm, because that stuff, rereading it, is so fascinating to me.
Yeah, we just go there for a hot second. There's a jail. We're like, what?
Yeah, they live in this gothic castle town,
Yeah.
and there's village squares, and it feels like they're in a dormitory style setting where they each have their own bedrooms. They have a dormitory shower, and they do paperwork, and you get this foreboding sense that their boss is really hard on them, but yet he's somehow gentle and kind. I don't know, it's weird. And their bosses repeatedly remind them that this is a punishment, that they're basically doing what society does to people who have taken their life and treating this like it's their fault, and they should be ashamed for what they've done.
They've done a horrible abomination against humanity or whatever.
Yeah. And Izumi internalizes that the most, I think. And that's a huge driving part for his character, because it informs with how he forms his relationships with others, like platonically and especially romantically with Mariko. What he did to Mariko was not okay. But he also clearly does not understand how to form and develop relationships with others. Mariko helped him to a certain point, but he didn't really get clarity until he meets Mitsuki. And that familial bond that he develops with her is what allows him to realize that closing himself off, being a nihilist, rejecting others isn't conductive or productive or healthy for him. And he needs to let other people in. Like, he clearly loves annoying Takuto, like that's his kid brother. He loves Mariko deeply with all of his heart. Jonathan exists. Jonathan is there. That's all I can say.
Can you explain to me what Jonathan is? Okay, my main question is,
okay,
we just discussed that Izumi was 6 when he died, and but manifest as a 16-year-old Shinigami. Okay, I guess we are only shown that the Shinigami, besides Jonathan, are humanoid. We are given many funny Tanemura side, content writings about how Jonathan is her favorite, and she just tried to make him look like one of the ghosts or whatever in Harry Potter, and everybody was like, what? Also, we don't talk about Harry Potter anymore. So
we don't like Harry Potter in this house.
We don't like Harry Potter in this house anymore. We get many, and she's always like, Jonathan is my favorite, and so I'm just like, but why is he a ghost where the others are humanoid? Also, has he always been the Shinigami boss Sheldon, or is Jonathan an actual, is that why he looks like a ghost, because he was always Sheldon and Sheldon was disguising himself to not be humanoid? Or is Jonathan a real Shinigami aside from Sheldon? I'm confused.
So it's the former. Sheldon is using Jonathan as a disguise. That's his disguise. Jonathan is just a cover. But I think what makes it confusing is in chapter 20, you see Jonathan next to Izumi, and Jonathan is being used as a intercom communicator, and Sheldon is talking to him through a mini Jonathan. And that's what confuses people.
Yes.
But what I think is happening is, I think Sheldon pre-recorded that, and that gave him his cover. is how I'm interpreting that
Oh, we
scene
have
now.
like whole weird like fan fiction head cannons now.
Mm-hmm. And I do actually like the twist that Sheldon was Jonathan this whole time. I just don't think it was executed very well. And I think that's due to the pacing issues that become very apparent in volume 5 and just make this manga fall apart in volume 6 and 7. Genuinely.
Yeah. Even talking about it with Asher, Asher's like, he didn't read it this time, but he's like watching me read it, right? He's watching me read it, and I was like, well, did you like it and all this stuff? And he's like, well, I remember liking it up to the point that it just totally falls apart.
Exactly. Exactly.
Totally goes whack and nonsense.
And you're like, this manga was paced so well from, I'd say, chapter 5 to chapter 19. Mm-hmm. And then with Izumi's chapter, as much as I do like how self-contained it is, I like your argument for it. It's great. Mm-hmm. I do think it should have been a 3-chapter arc like Takuto and Maruko. Mm. And then I would have liked an arc for Madoka. I would have liked an arc for Nachi. I would have liked an arc for Oshige.
Hold up. Nachi. Suddenly, Nachi is just in this story, and then they just keep talking about him. They're like, yo, that's my boy Nachi. Don't you remember? I'm like, no.
I'm like, you're like, hey, girl. What do you mean? I don't know what you mean by that.
Before? Like, no.
What do you mean? There's me? Oh, this is my good friend Nachi. What do you mean? What?
Since when?
Since when? I've never seen him.
I was just like, yo, am I crazy? No, Tanemura's just messing with me.
And what's frustrating is Nachi could have been introduced sooner, and he could have been tied to Madoka sooner too.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, let's just talk about them as a pair. Okay, so Madoka and Nachi are fellow idols in the idol industry. We are introduced to Madoka like really early on. She's like set up to be this rival to Full Moon. She's introduced in like chapter like 2 or 3, right? Like at the
chapter 1.
Oh, chapter 1.
Chapter 1.
She's there from the jump. So like, yeah, she's at the initial like audition that Mitsuki is going to try her hand at being an idol, and she's clearly trying to get, like, you as the audience member know that she's clearly trying to psych Mitsuki out, but Mitsuki is 12, so she doesn't like understand that. And so Madoka, again, is a person who's like, she's the Izumi of humans, I guess. She's the Izumi of the human character. She's like, I'm so evil, and then you're like, no, you're not. You're like a soft little dork inside. You're like playing at being evil, right? Like you've seen how it's supposed to go, and you're like, I can fit myself in this script, and actually you don't do it very well, right? Like that's her role here. And so her whole conniption, like going back to the purity theme, is that she's like, I really wanted to be an idol, but I wasn't pretty enough, and I had plastic surgery, and I know that everybody judges me for it, and I'm not a sweet, beautiful, natural beauty, purity cake, like Mitsuki / Full Moon over here. And rawr, right? Like she's just so mad about it. And so then suddenly Nachi appears in like volume 5 or something, and has apparently been Full Moon's best friend, not to my knowledge, but okay. And we find out that he has also had plastic surgery. Like, this is much later in the manga. This is literally side content. It's like he had plastic surgery. He was a boy that liked Madoka even before she had the surgery, and so he got the surgery so that he could like match her. And you're like, all right, I mean, that's true. Is that true love? I guess, according to Tanemura, it is. You must like me for me. And I'm like, I guess they do. I guess they do.
Madoka is such an interesting character. In the anime, she's way more vicious. And so is Izumi, by the way. They are just straight up rivals.
Oh, they just straight
They're
up put
villains.
that. Okay.
Yeah, and they are way more antagonistic.
Yeah, I was like Izumi and Madoka clearly love Mitsuki by volume like 3. You're like, all right, you're
But like, and this is why I prefer the manga more than the anime when it comes to character relationships, because even from chapter 1, Madoka was actually preparing Mitsuki for the industry. She sees, even though you're like, oh, she's being antagonistic right now, you get up to like chapter 4 or 5 and especially 6, and you're like, wait a minute, Madoka was actually trying to help Mitsuki, because Madoka has already been horrifically judged, especially by men in this
passing on the
industry.
trauma and seeing if Mitsuki can like cut it, right?
Yeah, and she's kind of already looking out for Mitsuki, and she's one of the first people to do that. So she already takes on this older sister mentor type role. She's never outright vicious or antagonistic towards Mitsuki. She's blunt, she's hot-headed, she kind of says things viciously, but she's always knowledgeable. She's always kind about what she says. So Mitsuki never feels like she's in danger when Madoka's around. And Madoka is also the first one to point out, leading up to Mitsuki confronting the reality that Eiichi is dead, she's like, hey, girl, you know that just like me, I was only creating vapid lyrics of beautiful words. And there's a huge fundamental flaw with your lyrics. And if you don't figure it out, your days in the idol industry are done. And that eats away at Mitsuki. And that's technically, besides the Shinigami finding out that Eiichi's dead, that's really what sets the stage for Mitsuki going down the path of writing true, honest lyrics that really capture her inner voice, her inner feelings. Because the lyrics that she wrote for Ange, they're great. They're fine. It's a beautiful song. She made the number 8 in the Oricon, but it's not the real Mitsuki. And because of what Madoka did and continued to do, looking out for Mitsuki, Mitsuki became a top idol because of Madoka. And that's why Madoka's a really great character. And I wish she could have gotten more attention. And Nachi, likewise, who's supposed to be a foil to Madoka, you're just like, girl, who are you? I don't know you.
I don't know you. I don't know you. How did you get here?
How'd you get here? Where'd you come from?
I truly, I was so confused. Okay, I mean,
and
I'm just gonna roll with it.
He's part of a duo group called Oz. Like, what's their music about?
And we never meet the other guy.
We never meet the other member of Oz. And Madoka and Nachi very quickly develop a fling for each other. And like, don't get me wrong. I do think the romance is really cute. And I do like that supplemental material where you find out that, oh, Nachi and Madoka were actually betrothed to each other. More political machinations, by the way. More arranged marriages, by the way. But unlike in Fuzuki and Moe and Seijiro's case, Nachi and Madoka could deeply relate to each other, work things out, have healthy adult communication, and love each other despite all the turmoil they've both gone through with their dysphoria. They have intense body dysphoria, and they love each other no matter whether they've had plastic surgery or not. And I think a story like that is very beautiful and poignant, but you don't get enough time to resonate with it.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be, I think that whole relationship is supposed to be a foil or like a complication to the overarching theme the manga is trying to do about like, how do you love like what is this pure love that you can find? How do you love a person for them and not for what they can like give you or who they are, like that they're an idol, right? Like it's not this idolization basically, right? Like, and so it's supposed to be like, even though they've done this body modification, they still find each other and love each other deeply. And I'm like, but it's not given enough space.
Just like with another relationship, Oshige and Wakoji and the Mitsuru drama, because there's that, and it's another fascinating element that doesn't get enough time to cook. Except they're adults.
It's fine because they're adults. Yeah.
It's so interesting that we get a messy romance story with adults. I think this is one of the very first times Arina actually toys with this in her manga, where she has an adult love story. And I love it. It's great, except we don't have enough time to play with it. And like with Madoka, Oshige's whole thing is about, as you said, purity. She's a failed idol. She never broke through the idol industry, but she views people like Wakoji and Full Moon as these pure, untouched deities that she could never associate herself with. So she hits rock bottom, and who's there to prey on her and scoop her up but Aoi's rival, Mitsuru, who's also a Nepo baby, and is the CEO of Seed Records. And she has an affair with him. He's married, by the way. This man is married, and he takes advantage of Oshige at her lowest point. Yeah. And they're having an affair together because Oshige feels like she could never be with her Oshi, basically, which is Wakoji. And it's so interesting because these themes are so interconnected with these characters. The idolization and sanitization of characters. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny that Wakoji, Arina said Wakoji looks like the adult version of Eiichi.
Right.
And then Eiichi goes through a sanitization process himself. And you never really know the true Eiichi outside of one side story. Right. And Wakoji himself is a truly messy, messy boy. That is a very messy boy, as we discussed earlier. Not just the stuff with Takuto and Aoi. He had unrequited feelings for Hazuki.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah.
Oh,
so he never confessed his feelings for Hazuki. And as I said earlier, he was grappling with, do I become a doctor or do I stay as a musician? And someone had left a horoscope page in his bag. And of course, that person was Oshige, but he thought it was Hazuki. And it doesn't take him until bonding with Oshige and seeing her true, like, sloppy self, that's the person he falls in love with. He falls in love with the real Oshige. He doesn't fall for a sanitized version of her. And he loves her flaws and all. And I think that theming of loving somebody despite all their flaws is very poignant and important in this manga. And Oshige feels like she could never be untainted. And he's like, girl, I'm just as messy as you. It's fine.
Oh, he messy.
All these characters are messy. They're all hot messes.
So messy.
And also, if we're talking about queer characters here, let's talk about how Mitsuru totally had an unrequited crush on Aoi, and he was so jealous that Aoi would never look his way. And he fell in love with a woman.
Yes. Yeah, no, they looked like they should have. They all had like long flowing hair in their boy bands too, you know, you're like, ah.
Mitsuru was part of a glam rock visual K band, and Wakoji fully leaned into the glam rock 80s rock band look. And meanwhile, Aoi is our neurodivergent king. I love that man so much. He is the purest, happy-go-lucky male wife. And if he had lived, not only would he have been a male wife supporting his wife and doting on her every second, he would have been the biggest, like, girl
dad
to Mitsuki. Like, no question in my mind, because he was already like, he bragged to the press, first of all, that, oh, not only am I getting married, guys, but my beautiful fiance is having our baby. And I'm so excited, you guys. He didn't want anybody leaking this information but him. And I have to applaud him for that.
You're like, I just love him.
I'm going to create my own scandals here.
Yeah. I'm fully in control of the narrative, you know?
And he was like, oh, what's that little baby? Are you sad? Does daddy need to give you a hug? He was like raising a teddy bear up in the air, simulating being a father already. It was great. I wish we had more of him. You could have multiple spin-offs with Full Moon. You could have had a Root L spin-off. You could have had a Madoka spin-off. Like, you could have had a Shinigami spin-off.
Yeah. Because there's so much here, and it's all a mess.
If the listeners are wondering why we're jumping around so much, it's because there's so much we're trying to cover here. And it's so interwoven, it's hard not to jump around.
Yeah.
As a result, you know what I mean?
And I'm just like, well, it's also just like, not told, you know, like linearly to a degree. I'm just like, oh, we're just always jumping around.
No, it's not told cohesively.
Yeah. There's no real arcs, I would say.
And we have to get to Eiichi and Takuto. The love interests. Are you emotionally prepared for that?
Well, mostly what I've been thinking a lot of the time here was I was like, yeah, we didn't really talk about Takuto, and then I'm like, that's because he's boring. Like, again, as a child, I remember, as a younger person, I remember being so like, I love Takuto. You know, he's my Soon character. I'm always here for my good Soons. He's a good boy. He's just being sloppy about it. He's like kind of on the Vaughn from Escaflowne like character model.
Mm-hmm.
And now reading it as an adult, I'm like, no, he's the most boring character in this. like what? The twist with him is that he's been doing the Shinigami work this whole time, and everybody's like, oh my god, he's so bad at it. And so it turns out that he was not fully dead. He was in a coma for 15 years, you know, like for 12 years.
For 84 years.
For 84 years, to bring it back around. Yes, he was in a coma. And, you know, it takes him... So there's a time skip at the end of the manga, because of course a classic.
Yep.
So there's a time skip of 3 years in which he reappears after Mitsuki thinks that, you know, the Shinigami have disappeared because one, she's no longer dying, two, like, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, so he comes back and he's like, yeah, I was in a coma, I've recovered, like, I'm hot, like, let's go. And you're like, actually, this relationship is so problematic because, again, Takuto's alive. Wow, like he's 12 or something, or like 15 or something, when Mitsuki is 0, when Mitsuki is just a wee baby being in a womb. He's the one who names Mitsuki. Like, it's creepy. Like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And again, I think he's just kind of like the most bored. Like, he's just a Soon, and he doesn't have quite as much emotional weight for me as Muroko and Izumi and other folks end up having.
And then the same thing could be said about Eiichi, because Eiichi has significant problems too. Because the most we get of Eiichi is Mitsuki's sanitized idolization of him. There's only one chapter where we get Eiichi's point of view. And again, goes back to, I wish we could have gotten more chapters with Eiichi as himself rather than Mitsuki's sanitized version. And like, as time goes on, like, of course, you're getting Mitsuki's sanitized version, and you get the sense that's, something's off about how Mitsuki talks about Eiichi. And then when you do get the truth about Eiichi, leading up to his death, of course, first of all, there's a 4-year age gap. In the anime, it's 6.
Oh, made it worse in the anime. Great. I love
in
that.
In the anime, it's 6 years. In the manga, it's 4.
Which, again, when you're older, doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
But when you are sub 18 is a big
so,
difference.
Eiichi knows at some point he's about to be adopted and leave. So he sees this as his last chance to confess his feelings. For a 10-year-old, 10 years old, a 10-year-old girl. And of course, Mitsuki, being a child, she doesn't understand that what Eiichi means is romantic love and not familial love, because this whole time, Mitsuki saw Eiichi as an older brother. And to Eiichi's credit, I do think for a little bit, when they were like younger, he saw Mitsuki as an older sister, and then that changed. I know Arina has said in her notes somewhere that no, he's always loved her romantically, and if that's the case, that is really creepy, because he first met Mitsuki when she was 3 years old and he was 7. So I hope that's not the case.
Yeah.
I can't remember where she said that, if she said it. If not, I hope I'm wrong and I'm just misremembering something. But she's always said that, like, with Mitsuki and Eiichi, it's always been like they've been romantically linked, but I disagree there. Mitsuki took Eiichi's confession as, oh, I love you too, you're my big brother. And then Eiichi says, no, Mitsuki, I don't like you like that. It's not like being family. I love you romantically. And he tells her, I love you so much it hurts. And then he sexually assaults her by kissing her.
Yes.
That, even as a child, that made me so angry.
Excellent.
That made me so mad. I hated Eiichi ever since then. I never liked him. It went beyond the, oh, Mitsuki's being annoying about Eiichi. When you find out that Eiichi did that, I have no empathy for this guy. I am sorry. Not sorry. It's just, he sexually assaulted a child.
You're like, he is not the sweet angel baby we are trying to make him out to be.
No. And then, of course, this sends Mitsuki into shock, because Eiichi just did this horrific thing to her. She doesn't know what to think of it. She's 10. And then she finds out, like, literally the next morning that Eiichi is supposed to leave. And she has to deal with the fact that Eiichi just assaulted her. Her heart is pounding whenever he looks at her. Girl, it's called trauma. And then when they're at the airport, Mitsuki is seeing him off. And then Eiichi does the next horrible thing I hate him for. And he gaslights her. And he says, oh, you can't respond to my confession? Well, then you should just forget about me.
Yeah.
Like, what a horrible, horrible thing to say to a 10-year-old child.
And to be clear, like, we think it's horrible now, but I don't think that the manga, like, I don't think Tanemura writes it as, like, what a despicable thing Eiichi did, right? Like,
No, it's supposed to be viewed as romantic, like, Mitsuki's confused, she doesn't understand she's actually in love with Eiichi, and she's trying to come to terms with that. But, like, when you have your character, and I'm not saying that kids can't fall in love, because they do, but they don't have an adult understanding of what love is. And that's how Arina writes these characters like they're adults.
Yeah.
So then, of course, when Ichi leaves, that's when Mitsuki's like, oh God, I love him. My soul has been screaming at me because I love him. And I have to tell him and I have to apologize to him. Girl, you don't have to apologize to him for anything. If anything, he should be apologizing to you for what he did. And of course, that's when, while Mitsuki is back at the orphanage waiting for a phone call from Ichi because he's in the air on the airplane, that's when the breaking news story happens on the TV that she finds out that Ichi is dead. And she even keeps a newspaper clipping of the announcement of Ichi's airplane crash. And that's how the Shinigami find out. So you have that love interest, and then you have Takuto.
Neither inspires great. I'm not shipping either too hard here. Let's say that.
As a kid, I loved Mitsuki and Takuto together.
I did too.
As an adult, and by the way, even as a kid, those moments where Takuto himself forces himself on Mitsuki? I hated him for that too.
Okay.
You know how I ranted in the John podcast about Chiyoki?
Takuto!
Yeah, I'll give Takuto this. Out of all of Arina's male love interests, Takuto only does these incidents twice, and he owns up to his mistakes and he apologizes for it. None of her other male leads take accountability for their actions. Takuto's the only one to do it.
Okay.
Let me be clear, though. I don't excuse what he did because it still ticks me off. Because Mitsuki's a child, and as a Shinigami, he is 16 years old.
He's also literally sexualizing her. He's the one who's I could make you a sexy 16-year-old babe snap, and we're like, whoa, hold on.
Well, Mitsuki did ask to make her 16, and he was like, yeah, okay.
I know, but the fact that he's the one who does it and then is like, oh, babe, I love you. And it's like...
Yeah. Takuto, separating himself from the romance for a minute, Takuto's character is interesting to me. I do find his backstory compelling and what he goes through very fascinating because on a fundamental level, besides his ties to Mitsuki, which non-romantic wise, he originally visited a young Mitsuki at the orphanage at one point, and he said he would try to protect her, but at some point, he never saw her again because his own life got so messy with Hikari, with his solo career, and then his cancer diagnosis. I keep thinking about that. He never fulfilled his promise to protect Mitsuki as in his human life.
Right.
And then as a Shinigami, he does regret what he did and he's trying his best. He wishes he talked things through. He wishes he didn't lash out the way that he did. And I do find that, and his ties to music especially, Takuto was an orphan himself. So he relates, I think he does have some kind of kinship with Mitsuki at that level. So he was an orphan. Music saved him. Mitsuki's father basically saved him. And music was basically the driving force for Takuto's life. So that's why he pretty much helped Mitsuki. So he understands at least where Mitsuki's coming from, especially with the throat cancer diagnosis. But then when you add the romantic component into that, I think it does ruin everything. And I don't know if I can support Mitsuki and Takuto romantically anymore, especially with the age component.
The age component is big. Yeah.
I still haven't figured out what that age gap is, and it breaks my brain every time I try to think about it.
I mean, it's too big. Let's say that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And again, younger me really liked this kind of like very intertwined, like it's their destiny that they're in love together because they were always so intertwined, right? Although there's, he named her, the stars are keeping them apart and everything, star-crossed lovers kind of thing, in this like most extreme way. I love that crap growing up, and now I'm like, no. That's weird. Like the universe can tell you things, but not like that's too weird. It's too far. I do believe the universe tries to leave you little signs and nudge you in a direction, but what? No. It's too much.
I think Arina complicated this matter too much. I ship Mitsuki in therapy.
Mitsuki in therapy. Yeah, I was like, wait, you didn't even say about how. So part of the Shinigami lore is you can become a ghost.
Yeah, there's that component too.
And so Eiichi has become a ghost.
Well, so the reason why Takuto figured out that Eiichi is dead is because that was his first job as a Shinigami. So he was trying to collect souls from the plane crash, and he finds Eiichi's soul. And Eiichi is like, I hate you. You can't have my soul. I'm only going to give my soul to Mitsuki. And so he cursed Takuto and left. And by the way, you never find out what that curse is.
No.
Just saying. And Takuto, and of course you already had mentioned, Takuto isn't a full Shinigami because Takuto's actually in a coma. He didn't successfully take his own life. As he's about to die, you see it. There's a panel where you see a hand reaching out for Takuto's. So it's implied that Wakoji saved him. So the hint was there, but it didn't register at first. But either way, like if Takuto, a half Shinigami, an incomplete Shinigami, I should say, remembers his past life, he's at risk at becoming a ghost. Totally okay if full Shinigami remember their past life, by the way. Miruko's fine. Izumi came into being a Shinigami already remembering his past life. Yeah. But the lore is that incomplete Shinigami are unable to handle the load, I guess.
Okay. And so Eiichi is just like a spirit. He's not even fully crossed over, and he's just like, I'm a ghost.
And we find out that the reason why Mitsuki can see the Shinigami is because Eiichi's spirit is attached to her, and he's been there the whole time.
Yeah, versus she thought that his soul was like at the bottom of the ocean, and so we get this whole, there is a bunch of like Little Mermaid real version imagery that we get where, Mitsuki is like, I gotta go sing to the sea, and I gotta be like the Little Mermaid, like I'll die rather than give up this great love. And you're like, oh, all right, I guess. Actually, I liked the twist that Eiichi was like a ghost. Like that one was kind of
I liked it too.
Yeah.
I didn't appreciate it as a kid, but as an adult, I'm like, okay, that was powerful. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, as a kid, again, I was probably way more into all the simpler twists and everything, and I'm like, no, this one actually hit.
This slaps.
This slaps, yeah. Like that is some good stuff, Yeah, so that's like a lot of the overarching themes and most of the characters. So I want to, we'll do a very quick shipping corner because I think we made most of our feelings clear, but we'll do the rundown here. So here's one that we actually didn't mention. I try to again rank it in like reverse order of space within the story. I don't want to say like importance, like whatever, love is equally important, but just like space that is given in the story. So it is implied, in my opinion, that Sheldon and Mystery, who is like the actual boss lady of the underworld, who's like a human, the first human to go to the underworld, and
the girl boss,
she's
she's girl max. She's death maxing girl boss babe. Of the Shinigami society.
The Shinigami, and you're like, okay. I mean, I don't hate it. I could.
Okay, queen.
Okay,
get it.
Yeah. So Sheldon and Mystery like each other, and I'm like, okay, sure.
Okay. Again, another thing that I wish we had more time to cook with, but I don't mind it.
Yeah, this is a spin-off series number 7. Here we go. This is another person we didn't even mention. So there's Hikari x Takuto. So Hikari winds up being is Mitsuki's like stylist for her. It's not even a tour. It's just like a concert that she's going to put on that goes through her album. And so by this point, Waka Oji and Oshigi are in on that Mitsuki, like full moon is Mitsuki. And they're like, oh, so she's been trying to reach Eiichi this whole time. So if we let her do this one big concert and like get really big, she'll fulfill that part, and then we can do the surgery, right? So like that's like, so that's, and then Hikari is introduced as like the person who is going to help her come up with like the dance routines and the costumes and everything for this. Then it's like Hikari was Takuto's old girlfriend when he was a human, and you know Hikari gives Mitsuki amusement park tickets, and like Takuto and Mitsuki are actually going to go on a date with these amusement park tickets, but it gets waylaid because Takuto made himself visible to humans by using more power, and the first human of course he runs into is Hikari. So like they end up kind of going on a date, and it's like supposed to be this cathartic moment, I think, for both Takuto and Hikari to be like, oh, we were like maybe gonna break up, but maybe still loved each other, and so they get closure in this relationship. But it felt like so out of left field, and like a strange way to increase the amount of drama that already exists with Takuto and Mitsuki, because you know at this point in the story, Mitsuki's like grappling with like my one true love is Eiichi, but I also feel these things for Takuto, and okay, Eiichi's dead, and like Takuto's also technically dead, but maybe it's okay, you know, for me to like have feelings for both of them, and Takuto is at least a being that exists in front of me that I can hold. So like, I think it's fine, you know? And you're like, it's getting weird. Okay.
Again, the concept of Hikari and Takuto, I do like because it adds complexity to Takuto. And I like the concept of Hikari because this is later on in Takuto's solar career. And he sees Hikari and he's like, oh, this girl's really cute. So he shoots his shot and he's like, hey, you want to go on a date? And of course, I think Hikari's a little bit older than him. I think it's implied she's a couple years older than him. I'm not entirely sure. She's like, hey, Takuto Kira of Route L is asking me out. And Takuto's like, hey, please keep it on the down low. And then Hikari's famous line is like, hey, so do you want to have an affair with me? So it's implied that Hikari is a very messy person. She's not good at keeping romantic relationships. She's always bouncing from one guy to the next. She's always very flighty with her feelings. And Takuto understands this, but he's so desperate for affection that he stays with her. And then, of course, the fallout with his cancer diagnosis happens. And I think at one point he was actually going to propose to her. So it's just another thing where you're like, okay, this concept's really interesting, but because you didn't cook with it.
It was literally sprinted through in a single chapter, like maybe a little bit seated in the chapter before and a little bit after, and that's it. And you're like, whoa, man.
It's treated like an obstacle to Mitsuki and Takuto's relationship when it really should have been informing Takuto as a person and then giving complexity to Hikari and also how the idol industry treats romantic relationships in general.
Yeah, see, that would have all been way more interesting. Instead, it was just like, let's just get some closure for Hikari and Takuto and create unnecessary drama for Takuto and Mitsuki. And I was like, no, not this late in the game, ma'am.
Hey, speaking of drama, Mirko and Takuto.
Are they drama or are they just sloppy? Like,
I think sloppy.
Takuto's got her number, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Takuto, you find out in a supplemental chapter in the last volume, it's funny because you have this setup. I just talked about Hikari and Takuto develops a little crush on Mirko in the exact same way he developed a crush on Hikari. So Mirko's being nice to him. She's being friendly, accommodating, welcoming him into Shinigami society, giving him a hair trim, making him new outfit, trying to make him feel comfortable. And he's like, oh, this girl is so nice. And she keeps telling me that she loves me. Maybe I should go hook up with her or something. So he gets her some flowers. And then, of course, he sees that Mirko and Izumi are being sloppy and messy and kissing each other. And then he realizes that Mirko doesn't actually love him like that. And that's why in the manga, whenever Mirko confesses to Takuto's like, you're not being sincere with me. I can't take you seriously. And he treats it all like it's a bluff. And it technically is.
I was like, but it is.
It is. Let's be real, it is. I don't think Mirko ever sincerely loved Takuto. And if she did, she didn't realize it until maybe she was confronting all those shinigami about to shoot her with a bunch of arrows. But it wasn't sincere romantic love. And I never believed it for a second. And and that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's one of these things where one of the, you know, messages in the manga is like, you have to be aspiring to the person that you want to be. And I think that Mirko takes it and is like, if I just, you know, do the thing where I say that I love Takuto, eventually I will, right? And I'm like, I believe that could have worked, except that Izumi reinserted himself in the conversation, right? Like, so, lol. Mirko and Izumi, they're cute. I like them. I ship it.
I ship it.
Ship send. We finally found one to send. Great.
Yep. Are they messy? Oh yes. They are. They are very messy. But you know what? They're very hurt people, and they found comfort within each other. And Mirko and Izumi saw each other for who they actually were. And they never shamed each other for it. They were always sincere. Yes, Izumi teases her. Yes, Mirko is flighty and impulsive, but they always had a kinship that was unlike anything they had with anybody else. And I think that's beautiful. And by the way, that never happened in the anime. So Mirko and Izumi did not exist in the anime. It was
crimes.
Yeah. So because the anime happened so early, Izumi was always antagonistic, and it was treated like Mirko would never love Izumi. He's just a jerk, and Mirko only loved Takuto. And we never get Mirko's backstory in the anime either. So if you want an actual good love story for Mirko, it's Mirko and Izumi in the manga specifically.
Yeah. I have to rewatch this anime just to be like, what did they do here anyway? All right.
Nachi and Madoka.
I ship it.
I ship it.
Full send.
Even if we don't get enough time with them, they are so cute that I forgive it.
Yeah. I'm just like, yeah, they made themselves hot for together and for each other. All right, I'm good with it. It's fine.
They're a power couple.
Yeah, Yeah. Power idol couple. I'm like, there's nothing better, man. Great.
You know what? Ironically, they're probably the most healthy relationship.
Right. It might be.
In the manga.
The most like healthy, semi-normal. Like if you saw that in a like everyday high school drama kind of manga, you'd be like, yeah, right. You know, like
Yeah.
it's a little extreme, but like within the realm of possibility, fine.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. Oshigi and Wakaoji.
I ship it.
I ship it. I ship it.
Again, messy.
I would say I have reticence over how hardcore of a fangirl Oshigi was of Wakaoji. Like the amount of posters in that apartment would scare me if I was Wakaoji, but you know, like it's not the worst thing in this manga, so I'm like it's fine.
I did find it funny that he was like, oh, there's so many posters of me in this apartment.
Yeah.
It was a really funny subversion of it, but let's be real. If I walked into someone's apartment with posters of me all over the wall, I would have a panic attack.
Yeah, you'd be like, I'm getting the hell out of here. Like, this is a creepy stalker who's going to murder me. Like, we gotta go now.
Yeah, but we do know that Oshige is pure in the sense of her intentions and her feelings of Wakoji. It's just she has so much self-hatred that she feels like she can't be with him, and it's horrible.
Right. I was like, there's nothing actually untoward happening here, unlike with other couples where there's actual like assault, like forcing on each other. And I'm like, no, that's not happening here. It's fine.
And it's thanks to Wakoji giving Oshige the courage to love herself and give her that ability to love all her faults and her flaws that she had the courage to actually leave Mitsuru. I mean, right. Wakoji was there and like removed her from the situation.
Literally.
But like, yeah. But she would have gone back to him if Wakoji wasn't there.
Totally. Oh, good happy endings. We already discussed Eiichi and Mitsuki. We do not ship it.
No. Throw it in the dumpster fire, and I never
throw them in the deep dark ocean and leave them there.
I will say this. I think in terms of informing Mitsuki's trauma and her grief and how she learns to keep the memory of Eiichi alive in a healthy, non-codependent, traumatic way and allow herself to enjoy life as a result from healthier influences around her. I do appreciate the relationship more than I did as a kid, but I would never ship them ever. Nope.
Yes, this makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Takudo and Mitsuki, what's the consensus here?
I don't know.
I'm like, fine. You want them to be a couple, fine, but I don't like feel it in my heart. I think
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, ship it if you want, but it doesn't move me.
I think Takuto was the biggest reason why Mitsuki was able to love herself again and find meaning in her life again. And I like
have an as actual life again.
Yeah, like as a concept, I appreciate deeply what Takuto and Mitsuki is as a relationship, but
we don't ship it.
I can't with good conscience.
Yeah.
Support it. If you ship it, it's okay.
It's okay. I won't get angry. Yeah. I think we both agree that the OTP is Fuzuki and Moe. Yes.
Oh, is that anyone we wish was a real ship? Because yes, I do wish that was a real ship.
Well, that's anyone you wish was a real ship, and I think that's the one true pairing. I think that's the answer to both of them.
Yeah. Who's my OTP? I think Fuzuki and Moe, yes. I also wish Aoi and Hazuki had more time to cook. Because Aoi is such a sweetie. We never get to see Hazuki in the manga.
Hazuki, yeah.
We only get that one panel where she's like, I'm running away. I'm bearing this man's child and I'm running away. And that's it. In the anime, actually, she has a tiny bit more characterization, but it's not much. And Aoi doesn't. Aoi's just there. And I think Hazuki actually in the anime was the one who came up with Mitsuki's name. But
that's good for Takuto.
I wish Aoi and Hazuki had more time to cook. As for who's my OTP, Fuzuki and Moe, I'd say Nachi and Madoka.
Yeah, Nachi and Madoka. Well, so I think that about wraps up Full Moon. I did want to say I had in volume 7 there was a line, you know, they're like we're deep in the shinigami or trying to reap her soul, maybe ? Arc here. We're talking about purity some more, and Mitsuki has the line. I'm pretty sure it's Mitsuki. To get what you really want, you have to risk enough of your feelings, or else you won't be able to get it. And I was like, I'm shook, honestly. Like, that's really good life advice.
It is. There are so many lines that go hard. And also, on a final thought, I need to talk about how intrinsically 2000s the manga is with the music. You can tell. Okay, so you can tell that Anj, if you had to headcanon Anj, her first single as like music, I envision it as like Eurobeat 2000s pop.
Okay.
And then Missing Link is totally like Evanescence, Within Temptation, Tattoo. It screams that to me. Like she swaps when she's like vocalizing her inner self.
Right.
And what do you think? How do you think Mitsuki would be singing her songs?
Well, see, I got so distracted by all the sidebars that were like, I was inspired by this specific Japanese song. I think I went and listened to at least one of them. You know, like Maya Sakamoto's here. I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, okay.
My queen.
Exactly.
Queen
Maya Sakamoto's here. Like,
she also said she listened. You brought up Fruits Basket earlier. She also mentioned that she listened to Yui Horie, who is the first voice actress for Toru in the 2001 version of Fruits Basket. So I was like, did you want Yui Horie to voice Mitsuki?
Did you want that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was distracted by how much like music was already mentioned in the sidebars, and then also just thinking about how we don't get like sidebars like this anymore, like that are really forthcoming about how horrid the manga industry actually is.
Yeah.
And
she said that she also based Mitsuki's hair off of a former singer in Morning Musume. Do you know what Morning Musume is?
No.
It's sort of similar. Do you know what AKB48 is?
Yes.
So it's the older version of like AKB48. It's they were a J-pop group, and so one of the singers had a similar hairstyle to Mitsuki. So she was like, "I'm taking that." Oh, and speaking of Japanese singers that you were bringing up, speaking of which, I think Anj is also Ayumi Hanasaki coded.
Mm-hmm.
If we had to pick early 2000s singers, Ayumi Hamasaki, my goat.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening to Shojo Tell. Comments, questions, constructive criticism, concerns, need to gush about your OTP? Email shoujoandtell@gmail.com or leave a comment on the episode's YouTube page. We're at Shojo and Tell on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Tumblr. Laura, where can people find you and your work on the internet?
Well, I've sort of receded from the internet, but you can find me on Blue
Haven't we all?
Sky. Yeah, I know, right? Blue Sky, Instagram, Tumblr, at I'm Spiced Speaka on all those platforms. You can sort of find me there. I'm not super active. You can also find me on Twitch. I don't stream, but I am in the Twitch sphere in other streamers' platforms. So if you see me, you can say hi.
What's good, Laura? Yeah.
What's good? What's happening?
What's up? Are you excited every time you see a new episode from us? If so, please consider leaving a rating on Apple Podcasts. This will help the podcast reach more hearts, or at least ears. Or do a little thumbs up thingy on Spotify. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next time for I don't know. I'm gonna try to make it something more modern though. That's my one true goal here. Everything I can think of is very long though, and like I don't really want to. I have an idea for something I want to do later in the year, and you know some of the biggies are ending, like Yona and stuff. So I'm like, I don't want to commit to like a 20-pluser, but I'll try to find something more modern. Stay tuned. Until then, bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, we've got one too, on your back. You know, a plum. I can see it.
I do, really? Are you sure?
Yeah, it's only a little one though.